This would have been my third faculty recital that I have participated in. And I believe that the purpose of faculty recitals is to showcase what the faculty actually have to offer musically as musicians, who they are as musicians, and how they present themselves working in a music school, essentially. Yeah, so being able to really get on stage and showcase what they have to offer to their students as actual musicians definitely makes them better faculty members. All right, so this semester, because I was working solo, I decided to do some unaccompanied Bach. So I will be performing the last two movements of Partita number 3 in E major, the um, the beret, and the jig. So I chose those two because they are very upbeat and energetic. They're very fun to play, and so I thought it would again be a great way to showcase my abilities. Yeah, and showcase the violin.
Performed in the faculty recitals, just the general ones, every year since I started in 2012. And then I guess I've given 3 or 4 solo recitals and then a couple of collaborative recitals. And I think that they're really important because I need to show my students and what I'm asking them to do and show that the performance aspect or learning how to be a good performer never stops. It's a great chance to learn new repertoire, and it has you like push yourself to do new things and get better, and also to re-inspire yourself, right? To rediscover. I think it's important continually why you love performing, why you love music, and why you love teaching. So this is Rachmaninoff's Vocalese, and it was originally written for voice, but there are adaptations for many solo instruments. And the art of a vocalese, which is a vocal exercise, it's interesting because when Wayne and I were actually first putting this together, we were actually planning to give a recital with several vocaleses in it as a set, and it really opens your eyes. It's just all about the voice without the text, which is something that singers aren't necessarily used to. We're used to relying on our text to communicate to our audience. So it puts us, I think, in the position of the instrumentalist, right, who has to communicate with just their sound, and that's challenging for a vocalist. And freeing, but really makes you focus on different elements that maybe you hadn't before.
every faculty recital since I started here in 1998. One year, Linda and I were in China over the faculty recitals, so we videotaped beforehand and it was shown during the purpose is we want to present, a wide variety of music and, hopefully to not just the students, but the general public and, and give them a nice evening. We are playing Brillants by Ida Gutkovsky, and it's a piece we've played for 25 years, and we've probably played it three times already on faculty concerts. We try to spread it out so it's every 5 or 6 years. So, but it's a great piece and it's really accessible.
think it's very important for students to hear their teachers perform. You know, you guys spend so much time listening to us talk to you about what you need to be doing to get better and improve. And I think it's important that you see that we're still students too, and we're still working, and we're still trying to get better, and we're still performing and working on our craft. So, yeah. Elizabeth Rahm is a Canadian composer and oboist, very fine oboist. And she wrote this piece a little over 20 years ago. It was originally for tuba, and she very quickly transcribed it for euphonium as well. Did a version for euphonium. And she wrote it for John Griffiths, the great Canadian virtuoso tubist. Betsy Rahm is also Canadian. And so I found the piece, and I'd never really heard it before. So for something that's been around for more than 20 years, it doesn't really get a lot of play. I think it gets programmed on student recitals, but you really don't hear it when you go to conferences and things like that. It's not the most difficult piece, but it's tuneful, it's pleasant, and it's very playable, very approachable. So for me, I was attracted to the piece because it sounded good right from the first time I read it. It was like, yeah, I like this. This is fun to play. And then I had actually prepared it to do 3 recitals at conferences last spring. So I had a performance at the University of Kentucky, a performance up at Kennesaw State University, and then a performance at Oklahoma State University that I was going to do at 3 different tuba euphonium conferences. And the one at Oklahoma State was right during our spring break, so it was the first one that got canceled. So I didn't get to play the piece. I'd had 1 rehearsal on it with Dr. Elias, and then everything happened. So, you know, a month or 2 ago, the first time we got back together, actually it was when we recorded it, was the first time that we had read the piece together since that early March rehearsal last spring. So it's like we came in to record the piece for this recital, and it was like, hey, let's remember how this goes.
I think it's a fun way to showcase not just to the students, but to anyone else who happens to be watching as well. Um, for me personally, just some of the different clarinet works that are out there that are a little bit outside of the norm. So, as much as I love to hear the Mozart Concerto or the Saint-Saëns Sonata, I think it's really cool to be able to give some of these other pieces a little bit more exposure. Some of these pieces that audiences may not have heard before. It's a chance to showcase a whole bunch of different styles of music outside of what a lot of audiences perceive as classical music. Because to some people, you've got Mozart, you've got Beethoven, you've got Liszt, Schubert, all those guys. But to be able to, showcase some of these works that broadens people's perspectives on classical music as a whole, I think it's just really important on a larger scale to be able to get people to relate to the genre as times and as music evolves over the 21st century. One of my fascinations over the last year has been getting into clarinet performance with the use of live digital effects. So for example, a lot of the effects that you would see used by an electric guitarist. So these can range from anything like some of the more subtle effects like reverb or delay to some of the more extreme ones like distortion or even pitch modulation. And so I happened upon this piece by a friend and fantastic composer, Sean Apevolo, who is an associate professor of composition and music theory out at Wheaton College Conservatory in Illinois. And it's a beautiful example in this case of clarinet with the use of digital delay. To put it simply, it's the idea that the clarinet sound is is converted into a signal, which is then outplayed through an amp. And so that signal is essentially echoed. And it's the way that he's able to use this echo that I think is really creative and awesome. So Circle Play 2 is a part of a larger collection of 3 works. And the second one happens to stand alone really well by itself. And essentially, the idea is that he uses it in a very sort of textural sense. So that in the middle section in particular, what you hear is a texture that he sets up with just a flutter of 30-second notes more towards the lower register of the clarinet. And as that's echoing into the space, what then happens is that he sets up a more melodic line up in the high register that almost is like, it's like raindrops of sorts, where they just kind of splash every now and then. And it's that interaction between kind of like your past and present self that I find really fun, especially from an unaccompanied performance sort of perspective. And so the piece itself was written back in 2006, and it was written for phenomenal clarinetist by the name of Anthony Taylor, who now is an associate professor of clarinet over at University of North Carolina, Greensboro.
The last 9 or 8, 9 months have been really crazy. Um, but when it comes to uncertainty, I think that the best thing that we can latch on to is what we know. And being here and being musicians, um, making music always makes people feel better. Yeah, music is a part of our lives, and as musicians, I think that it's really important for us to use our platform in that regard to help people latch onto something that is familiar. So being able to perform, however, offer people that music, something that they can latch on to because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now. Music is always one of those things that we can always come back to. And so being in this space, being here at the University of West Georgia, we are making a difference. And as long as we hold true to that and knowing that we have something that we can always help people feel better about themselves and the state of the world right now is really important. So push on, continue making music, continue doing what you love, and smile.
Well, I think there may be different advice. I mean, I think across the board, the further I go, I think any work you can do to be organized and to work to help with your time management is worth the time. So it seems like it's you're spending more time in order to spend less time when you organize yourself. But I think the more that students can learn to organize themselves from day one of college as much as possible, the better off they'll be. My successful students are good time managers, and I think on a really musical level, a great way to prepare for college is don't necessarily worry about learning about exactly what you're learning, but I'd say work on the piano, work on singing, and work on your ears in the sense of being able to like sing along with the piano and understand how relationships happen between what you're singing and the piano. And that will get you ready for theory and oral skills and keyboard skills, which is a lot of what occupies your time and you're right when you start college. And it's very important, and it's important to do well in those classes right from the beginning. So I think if you can work on how's the piano laid out, what does it sound like, can I sing along to it? If I go from this key to this key, what's it going to sound like in my voice? I think spending time on the piano with that intention could be really helpful. And then for my current students, it's I hate to say it again, but time management is just number one all the time. And then the other thing is the semester is so long, and I think I want my current students to know that this is what it is to work hard, and it's worth working hard when you're an opportunity for that work to really mean something important to you, which I think is what being a student is. And if you can just keep your feet moving and keep going and just move on through challenges and celebrate the successes, but just keep your feet moving, you're going to make it through. You're going to be okay. And 5 years from now, you'll look back and say, wow, I was busy, but I learned a lot, and I did it. I made it through. So just keep going. Well, I mean, honestly, I'd say follow the CDC's recommendations: social distancing, masks, wash your hands frequently for, I think 20 or 30 seconds. All those sorts of things. Take it seriously, because this is really something that is happening in the world right now, and it's not something that anyone has ever lived through unless they're 120 or something, which those people exist, but I don't know any. And I think that rest is really important. And wow, I keep tying things into time management, but I always, when I help students with time management, which is something that I do, I always advocate that they schedule their time to the point that they know how to get through their week in 6 days. And I'm a big advocate for a day off. I actually take 2 days off. I try and take weekends off. I'm a big, I think that if you don't create work-life balance for yourself, no one's going to create work-life balance for you. So I really try and be good about work-life balance. I don't really take full summers off. I take maybe a week off when I really need to rest. So if I didn't take weekends off, I would simply burn out, and then my productivity would go downhill. So it's a little different maybe for a student, because they have to go strong for 14, 15, 16 weeks, but then they have a little time that when a lot of them can rest. For me, I have to sustain it a little bit more. But still, I really think that getting rest is incredibly important, and that getting that rest is really, you can't rest and do all your work and have a social life if you don't make decisions about how you're going to use your time.
So, just first, in general advice, I would say take advantage of every opportunity you have. You know, it's amazing how quickly 4 or 5 years goes by. You know, I mean, when I was sitting in your chair as an undergraduate student, you know, as a 21, 22-year-old upperclassman, like, never did I imagine that 20 years later would come so quickly. And I know that sounds odd, but time flies. So, you know, in when you're in your early 40s like I am, it feels like at the same time so long ago, but just like yesterday, you know. So 4 years, 5 years is not that long a time in the grand scheme of things. Take advantage of the time you have here to do the work that you're here to do.
I think students should come in with an open mind. I think students, and I was definitely this way, you come in, you know what degree you want, and straight arrow. And I think you have to be open to all the aspects of music that are a possibility. And if you're unsure, I think also being open is helpful, because being open to being guided, right? Or seeking advice from your teachers. And I think that's an important aspect, to reach out to your teachers if you have questions, or you're unsure about things, or if you're worried about career choices. I think leaving yourself open and getting information rather than assuming information, right, is important. And for health, you know, that's certainly both physical and mental health. Very important, of course, these days. Again, I think communication is the biggest thing. Being able to talk to your teachers, and that's one of the things I like about the atmosphere of West Georgia. We're small enough so that I really get to know students, and you know, I can see when students are really stressed, right? And so I think just having that communication and being able to say, hey, I know you're really stressed out right now, what's going on? And being able to work with students to manage whatever they're going through is really important. So communication is key.
I think the most important thing now is balance. It's so easy to get hunkered down. And I find this myself, you know, you just get into that mindset of, oh, I've got 10,000 things to do, so I can only sleep for 2 hours tonight. You know, we have to avoid that if possible. And there have to be breaks in the daily routine. You know, you can't be in the practice room all day, you can't be in the library all day, you can't be staring at a computer screen all day. You know, you need to get some outside time, you need to get exercise. You know, you need to find a way to socialize with friends, even if it's over, you know, Zoom or FaceTime, or, you know. We should be reading books, you know, but not necessarily music history or music theory books, you know, things completely different, you know. We should be talking about politics, you know, because it affects all of us, you know, and it's certainly an interesting season for that, you know. But I think, I read an article in The Instrumentalist once. It was an interview with Eugene Rousseau, who was the saxophone professor at Indiana for many years. He was my teacher's teacher. And Rousseau, I think, was maybe one of the very best at being a world-class artist, a world-class teacher, but still having that balance between work, family, his artistic life, you know. So, you know, I try to model that.
Well, first of all, it comes with the understanding that there's a lot to balance. You know, just with, even if we weren't playing instruments in the first place, there's a lot to think about in terms of trying to stay safe in these times. So masks, social distancing, washing your hands, you know, keeping a bottle of hand sanitizer in your car just in case, that sort of thing. But especially when you consider playing a wind instrument in particular, and there are times when you're having to play in rehearsals or lessons face to face. It's almost like you can never be too safe when it comes to these things, because you're literally pumping air through an instrument. So making sure that you're careful about washing your masks and your bell covers regularly to make sure that there's that state of cleanliness there. But also just having things on hand just in case. So like I said, hand sanitizer, pad wipes, all that sort of stuff, because sometimes you just never know, say when you get like a bubbly key or something like that, and you've got nothing to dry it up with, because normally with clarinet players and like saxophone, flute, I'm sure there can be similar situations where, when you get a bubbly key, our first instinct is to just like, tilt to the side a little bit and just like blow the condensation out. But when you think about it, it's just like, well, should we really be doing that? So having these things on hand just in case something like that happens is just better for the safety of not only you, but for the friends and colleagues that are around you.
At the school where I used to teach, I was just a theory and oral skills faculty member, and I don't really think that my students knew me or knew that I was like a musician and not just a classroom instructor. And I think this has been a really good opportunity for me to just show people what I do, show people what I'm all about, particularly the students, right at the beginning of the school year or towards the beginning of the school year. And that means that I think that gives me a different kind of credibility in the music theory classroom and in the jazz studies classroom, because I actually do the thing that I'm teaching. And beyond that, it's just a good opportunity to just play for the community, which I don't always have an opportunity to do. So it's a nice chance to do that. I'm only doing one piece, and it's called the Civic Duty Shuffle. And I always have a really hard time figuring out what I'm going to do for the faculty concert, because it's only one thing. It's only one selection. And also, I don't tend to bring people in to collaborate. I tend to want to play on my own. One year, I had Mrs. Bird, our amazing percussion instructor, play a piece with me. I think that was my first year. But other than that, I've been doing solo piano for the most part. And I have a hard time choosing just something that's going to represent me well in one song. And I went through, I think what I ended up doing was my fourth try, but I just couldn't get the right vibe. I wanted to do something that said something about the times that we're in right now. So I was thinking of doing something a little more political, but I decided to go with something that just encouraged people to go and vote, because I think that's incredibly important. I think that's something that makes the United States what it is, that people can vote. And I think it's just really important to get out and just say how you want to be represented in your leadership. I think that's a really important thing. So there's no lyrics, there's no text or anything, but it's called the Civic Duty Shuffle, and I just want everyone to do their civic duty and shuffle on down to the polls and cast their vote.